Welcome back to Imperium Galactica. Commander Dante, just promoted, has been initiated aboard the flagship Executor. But before we get to his new duties, I need to cover a couple of things that were brought up in the last episode. So one is a very useful bit of information. I didn't realize this down arrow was here. We actually do get, unlike what I said, to communicate with the governor of Zeusen. So let's definitely do that.
This is Dante. What's the situation on your planet?
Everything is all right here, sir.
Whole lot of nothing there, but definitely good to know that that is a possibility. I appreciate the correction and information that you all gave me on that. Now, the other thing is, somebody was asking about this planet down here. It's just another alien colony. It's on a frozen planet. And we want to basically ignore all of the planets that are not ours or Garthog for the purpose of this rank. We don't want to create any more enemies for ourselves. And part of that is due to the objective of commander rank. In order to get promoted, and I'm telling you this now because the game never will, you need to conquer all of the Garthog planets. Now, if you think back in the cutscene, it said that we need to stop the Garthog encroachment and expansion, but that's phrased in a defensive sense. You know, we just need to be prepared to guard against their attacks, as we had been doing later in the captain rank. But in actuality, Commander is a hinge rank in the game where, of course, the first couple ranks we've seen mission and event-driven stuff. You know, escort this, fight these pirates, etc. And that's going to continue here at the beginning of Commander rank, but then the missions will stop. And it transitions into a more open-ended approach, but you're not told what your objective is at all. And so it can look like the game is broken because the Garthog fleets will attack us eventually, and we can fight them off, but nothing else will happen unless we actually invade, which we don't know that we're supposed to do unless, you know, you're just sort of going after it on your own, but the game doesn't tell you anything about that. So that can definitely be a frustrating thing for the player. But since we do know that going in here, we are going to prepare for it. In order to do that, let's first of all sell some extra tanks that we don't need. If we head over on Zeusen, we're going to go ahead and get rid of these. And we'll sell those on. And then we need to research with that invasion in mind. We want to have primarily a group of fully loaded, as many flagships as we can get. You can fit 3 in a fleet, as we've mentioned. We have 1. We want to build a couple more. In order to do that, we do need to research the Orbital Factory. So we're going to get that started. And I think I'm on the production screen. Yes, here we go. Now, I'm going to keep this at the default speed for now. And the reason is, we want to... It'll take almost 3 days for that research. We want to balance out what our planets are going to need in terms of investment there, versus having the right amount of factories, versus the speed in which we're going to research things, and investing those, and, you know, doing enough production. And so there's all these layers now to the economy. And for the most part, it's really going to vary based on how much you've built up, how much time you gave yourself to build up before you enter commander rank. But I'm going to want to keep most of the research on the default speed in order to balance all those things out. We'll see how that works as we move across. So I think now what we want to do is invest all of this. We need to build a bunch of stuff, and most of it's going to be over here on Zeusen. We are going to be able to build up quickly enough we can keep taxes at moderate, but we have much construction to do. We're essentially going to build everything here, virtually. So we're going to put up a park. I'm just going to get the bigger items in place first, and we're going to get the trade spaceport. Let's grab ourselves a stadium while we're at it, and that's going to go down here. There's actually a good place in between some rocks for it. What do we want next? Well, let's get some power to fuel all this. We only have 1 power plant here. Let's add a couple more. And of course, you can see that our funding, well, it's starting to go down. Not quite as impressive as it was. Of course, let's throw up a couple police stations, too. And let's see. Maybe a bar and a church. There's a good spot over here for those. And in a minute, I'll get back to why I'm doing this, but we are going to want the military-style development center on this planet. And let's get some food. Hydroponic food farm. Then we've got a bunch of smaller buildings that I sort of want to fit in around the top. These are all pretty much identical size. Let's see, I just want to fit them over this sort of rocky mound. Rec center. And let's throw in a bank. We don't need a hospital just yet. We're trying to get all the needs here to max out our income, of course, from Zeusin and get it growing as quickly as possible. And I know I'm missing some things. Fire Brigade. And the last one that's quite important that I almost forgot is, of course, we need somewhere for these people to live. We need an arcology. There we go. And we're down to less than 70,000. And we're not yet done building, rather. But in terms of why did I build a military development center, if we go back to the research, there's a couple different paths here. You can go with a second military one, you can go with a second mechanics one. If you went mechanics, you would be looking at things like, you know, perhaps we would want to research the Destroyer 2, or we could even research the cruiser there. The pulse laser that goes on the Destroyer 2, if I can find that here. That also requires mechanics and military. You know, so we could take down one of our other development centers. We could have built that in a different order. All of that types of things. But the most important factor in this upcoming invasion, especially the early parts of it, is your ground forces. You can only carry so many vehicles. You don't get to carry more medium tanks than you would get to carry light tanks. So going with a second military here in this setup, we can get the medium tanks. We can also get things like ion guns for our flagships and the cruiser and things of that nature. But the tanks is the key factor, and that's why we're going military. Now, we also want to start ramping up our factories a little bit more. I'm going to throw another weapons factory here on Naxos. The tanks take a long time to produce, so we're actually going to want slightly more weapons factory capacity than we are going to want for the spaceships, but they're also going to require a considerable amount of time to build the flagships themselves. So we're going to throw up a spaceship factory here on Achilles. And we will need a nuclear plant to power it. And this isn't everything. This is just what we have the money to do at the present time. So now we can begin to advance forward. And a new day dawns. They're warning us there's not enough living space on Zeusin. We know. We're working on that. 90,000 our income. And I do want to combine these here. Essentially what I want to do is I want to have one fleet for the damaged ships and another fleet for those that aren't damaged. Because we are going to be seeing more ships get damaged after we get into some more action later in the ranks. So we're going to rename you to Reserve. And then I'm going to just mark you as the primary. And I want to go sell these tanks. I'm trying to get over to the spaceport so that I'm able to do that. Work on that for now. Have the reserve fleet move up this way. Nothing built yet on Zeusin, but we're going to want to keep an eye on that. I do want to continue on with a couple more weapons factories now. We'll put one over here on Achilles, and I want to put one up on Centronome also. And we will need a power plant added here as well to supply all of that. And not that much left in cash after this. So I just really want to hang out at this stage, make sure our taxes are good. I think we should be, yep, we are. And move forward with the rest of the day. Of course, you can see we're slowly ticking down now. The amount that's being spent on the research, got to keep that in mind. I don't think you're quite close enough. Let's see. Nope, you are not near enough to the planet. Let me make sure, see if Centronome actually has that everything on there. It does. Okay. Let's take a look at Zeusen. Because now we have the hydroponic food farm up. We have our church almost up. And also somewhere up here, wherever I put it. Yep, the rec center is close as well. So I can actually boost the taxes there. We're going to get that out of the way when the arcology gets up in a moment as well. We can boost the taxes up to high. And we're now ready for another round of tax boosting with the rest of our planets. We're going to have some additional economic concerns as well, but we're not quite to the point where those will hit. Okay. Now, back on Zeusen. More buildings coming up in place, and the bar will be up for our next cycle, so we can hike this up even further. And of course, we will want to drop down our one round of additional taxes. And ready to continue on further. Actually, we should be able to sell these now. Yep. Let's get rid of those. Sell those tanks. Get every last bit of income that we can. I do want to keep the fighters around, though, at least for the moment. Now, I don't think we can do anything more over here yet, because we're now waiting to increase taxes again on the park and the stadium. Of course, they take longer, but everything else, you know, gradually coming into focus. And another day comes. So I think we are all set, actually, on our factories, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. If we take a look around at our planets, do we have any additional problems that we want to deal with yet? Well, Zeusen will be able to actually make a move here, because this park is about to come up. Move that up to demanding, and then in one more cycle we can deal with the stadium. And nothing else for the rest of the planets. We are going to want to save up money and not really invest in anything else just yet, and we will see as we move forward why that is. Another day later, we're a little over 150,000. Going to spend some of that here, but there's also some good examples of really some breakdowns in between different categories of planets here. So I want to look at some of that management issue. Now, in Zeusen, we have power that's short, but everything else is going well. Population growth coming back up, all of our needs met, you know, tax income, trade income, all of those things coming in. But if we look down here, as all our buildings are operational, for example, the Military Development Center, you can see the workers are short, along with the energy. Now, workers being short actually is hard to do if the planet's not super low population, and it doesn't matter. Because you can even have the workers below 50%, and everything will still operate just fine unless it's a factory. They don't even shut down at 50% like they do with power. But you don't want to put factories up, then they will get both the energy and the workers multiplying into a proportional reduction in their output. So planets that are, say, 6,000 population or less, probably not a good idea to put up factories when you want to add in all of the other support structures, you know, for tax and for research and morale and all of that. And so I call them frontier planets. They're still developing. So that's the first tier of 3. The second tier is the ones we've been pretty much using for the rest of the game, much like Centronome here, up to just below 20,000. And I don't know where it kicks in, but there is a gradual reduction, very, very slow, but it does happen, in the efficiency of your tax income. That is, you know, the larger the planet gets in population, you're not quite getting as much tax income per person. Put the arcology over here to deal with our housing issue. That's why we came down here. But it's fairly small, and I call these industrial planets in that 6,000 to 20,000 range. They're really in their prime. They're able to do anything that you really need them to do, and they're at their maximum efficiency that they're ever going to get. And then above 20,000, things start to fall off. I call those core worlds, and we're about to hit that now for the first time with San Sterling, our most populous planet. Now we're going to throw up another police station, but throwing up a police station every once in a while on a planet, I mean, we're going to do that everywhere. However, there's more that happens. Pretty soon we're going to have to lower the tax rate one level because we simply can't sustain the morale at the same tax level once it gets above 20,000. That's really just like turning on a switch. That's how that works. It'll start dropping pretty much immediately, and we'll have to lower it one when it gets there. Now, I've tried. The walkthrough says, oh, just throw up more morale buildings, eventually as your population gets bigger. That doesn't work. I put up a full set a couple times. I've done this test, like park, stadium, recreation center, bar, church, the whole 9 yards. It made no difference having a duplicate set of them. Adding more doesn't work. There's a limit how much you can boost that. So we're dealing with the fact that any large organization can't run as efficiently when it's larger as it does when it's not as big. And there's more that comes to this as well. Later on, all planets will require a fire brigade. We aren't nearly to that point yet. That's higher level of population, but you get to 20,000 and you need, on the desert planets, for example, and one of the other types as well, you will need water vaporators to maintain your population growth, and those are fairly expensive. And so you start having additional infrastructure you've got to add in. It becomes more difficult, particularly on planets with lots of obstacles, to play the sort of, it's been called planetary Tetris, sticking your buildings in. You begin to run out of room as they get bigger. So over 20,000, I call them core worlds, and they're simply not as efficient at getting things done. They're more work to maintain. So we're going to move forward.
We have received a message.
Not very far, I guess. What's going on now?
Happy birthday, hun. I really miss you a lot. Right now I'm off to see some friends. Yes, class reunion. Well, I guess you should come, but now I'll see ya.
Yeah, it's pretty clear even she didn't believe that. I don't think that I think that was the least convincing message we've gotten from our wife in this game. In any case, enjoy your class reunion. Off we go. Of course, we can see the Garthog fleet moving around again. We just want to double check and make sure everything continues to be fine. It is. Onward some more. Okay, so now I think we're at the point we want to do our temporary bump up. But we just hit the 20,000 point here, so we're actually not going to do it here. Watch what happens to the morale, even though we did not boost the taxes. As we head forward a little bit further. And we'll click that back down. Zeusen, still doing fine. We'll bring you down. And it's back down to neutral. So now we are reduced to very high, occasionally demanding here, instead of demanding and occasionally oppressive. And that pattern will continue with all of our planets once they hit the 20,000 mark. Now, meanwhile, on our research, we are just about done. And in fact, we just have one more tick left.
Research completed.
There we go. So what's next? Well, next we're going to get the tanks. These are, again, the longest thing to produce. But due to the need for continued investment in our planets, etc., we are going to stick again with the default speed. And we also do need to spend some money on that orbital factory that we just researched. So we're going to add one of those. 80,000. I believe that's one of the most expensive items you can purchase. So we're going to get that built. And proceed on. Actually, before we proceed on, I also want to build some of the weapons items here. Now, we are going to need 3 bombs, 2 missiles, and 6 lasers for each of our flagships. Of course, we have 1, and we're building 2 more flagships eventually. So I want to start building the support for that. And there's only so much of this that I can actually queue up right now because we can't afford all of it. Yeah, and that's probably, that might be a little high. We'll see. I can dial back some of these if I need to. We'll get more money when we cross over to the next day. Oh, nope, looks like we're going to make it. So that was 2 ships worth. And of course, now that the new day comes in, we'll go ahead and throw in the rest. And so on and so forth. Now over here in Naxos, and we're putting up another police station here, and soon this one will hit over that 20,000 mark. So that process will simply continue. But we're waiting now at the moment. It's going to be, you can see the time here, it's going to be almost 3 days until the tank's ready for production. And then, of course, we've got the Orbital Factory being built, so lots of activity going on. Another day and a half later to finish the Orbital Factory, and this requires a bit of explanation because it doesn't work at least the way I expected when I first saw it. It doesn't work like the equipment factory, spaceship weapons factories. It's not a case of the more you build, the more production you get out. It's a case of you either have one or you don't. So there's no reason to ever build more than one, but of course the game doesn't tell you this. So if we head into the equipment tab, we're going to put it on Sand Sterling. We can put it in orbit of any planet, but Sand Sterling is fairly centralized, should be fairly easy to defend. And so it's under this left side tab along with the space bases, and we simply plop that down. And once that's in place, you have to finagle the screen in here a little bit, because initially it's not showing we can build the flagship, but if we click off of it and back on, now it's there. Okay, so we're going to add a flagship to our production. And that's going to suck up most of our remaining funds. That's another 80,000, same price as the factory that builds it. We're going to delete that, because as long as we don't lose this one on Sand Sterling, and I have no intention of that, we will never need to build another one so long as the game is running. That is all of that. And then if we check back in on our research, we are progressing. We're a little bit over halfway done with the medium tanks. We got a little bit over a day to go on those. And just a few lasers left here. The bombs and missiles are all in place. So we are well on our way, getting everything that we need to max out our flagships, but there is more to do on that, and other events that will transpire coming up soon. We'll be getting to all that next episode. Thanks for watching, everyone.